I'm Shannon, and today I'll be leading you through a Hatha yoga class. Hatha yoga is a balanced approach to yoga. In Hatha, we embrace the yin qualities of certain poses, so the slower, more receptive poses, as well as the more yang poses, the more yang aspects of poses, the more energizing, active, heat-building poses. Trying to just basically balance both of those things in a single class. So we'll start out close to the floor, we'll do some standing postures, and then move back down to the floor to close the practice. If you have blocks, that could be a helpful prop. If not, you can use books, or you can skip it. You might not need it, but blocks or books would be helpful. So let's get started. Come down to a comfortable seated position, Sukhasana or easy pose, finding length in the spine. Getting ready to start the practice, bringing your awareness to your body and your breath. You can close the eyes or rest them softly on a single spot. And just begin by noticing your breath. And then begin to lengthen the inhales and the exhales. Maybe today you'd like to set an intention for your practice, something that you'd like to bring into your life today or this week. It can be a single word or a phrase or a mantra that you can return to if your mind starts to wander throughout the practice. From here, let's move into hands and knees, tabletop position. Fingers are spread on the floor, pushing down into the L made by the thumb and forefinger. Weight is evenly distributed in the hands. The knees are below the hips. And you can just start here by making any movement that feels good in the spine. Just move naturally. Listen to your body. Do what feels good. Maybe you make some shoulder rolls. Some creaks and groans come out as you do this. And then from here, move into some cat-cow. So on the inhale, you'll drop the belly, chest lifts, shines through the arms, the gaze lifts. And on the exhale, belly comes towards the spine, pushing the floor away, rounding the back. Moving like this at your own breath, your own pacing with your breath. Inhale, belly drops to the ground. Exhale, back rounds, push the floor away. Move like this for a few rounds. Just waking up the spine. And then come back to a neutral position. From here, walk the hands out towards the corners of the mat. Chest is dropping down. The hips stay over the knees. The forehead can come down to the ground. In Anahatasana, heart chakra pose or puppy dog pose. Chest is sinking. If you're feeling open, you can bring the chin to the ground. Maintaining contact with your breath here. Noticing the sensation in your upper back, your thoracic spine around your rib cage. From here, walk the hands over to the right for a side body stretch on the left.
And bring your awareness to your breath. Maybe you notice the expansion of the ribs on the left side as you inhale. And the release as you exhale. And come to the other side. Keeping your awareness on your breath and the sensation in your side body. And back to center, back to a neutral spine. From here, we'll thread the needle, so left arm lifts up, threads below the right arm, left shoulder comes down to the floor. You can push the floor away. Option here to extend the right leg, pushing the ball of the right foot into the floor for just maybe a little more torsion, different angle on the twist. And this spinal rotation. Imagine you can breathe right into that space under your left shoulder blade. And then move that over to the other side. And then come back to tabletop. Now we've moved the spine through its 5 movements. We've kind of got the blood flowing, the prana, the life force flowing in our upper body. We'll move into downward facing dog. So tuck the toes, hips go up and back. The entire palms are pressing into the mat. Your heels are descending towards the ground. Maybe they're not reaching the ground. You can bend the knees. See if it feels good. Maybe you bend one knee at a time, just easing into this pose, noticing your body in this pose, where you might have tension that you can let go of. In downward facing dog, the arms have some external rotation, which means that the elbow creases are gently rotating towards the front of the mat, the top of the mat. You can achieve that by focusing your attention on the palms of your hands and again pushing down into that L made by your forefinger and thumb, rotating the shoulder blades onto the back. The shoulders are kind of neutral here, not shrugging up to the ears, not depressed all the way down, but somewhere in the middle. From here, on your next inhale, raise the right leg straight back. And on an exhale, pull it forward between the hands. Left knee comes down, low lunge. From here, you can have any arm variation that feels good for you. The hands can rest on the thigh. If you are not quite ready for a very active pose yet, we're still early in the class. Or if you're ready and you're feeling like you want some energy, maybe you raise the arms overhead, active arms in the shape of a Y. Maybe you cactus the arms, lifting the chest with a little back bend here. You can increase the intensity of the sensation in your left leg by pushing the top of your left foot down into the floor, engaging your left butt cheek, your left glute. Breathing here. On your next exhale, hands come down to frame the foot and step back into downward facing dog. Pause for a moment. And on your next inhale, left leg lifts straight back. Exhale, pull through. Right leg comes down, low lunge on this side. Again, any arm variation. Keeping the left knee over the left ankle. Maybe engaging that right glute by pushing the top of the right foot down into the floor as if you're trying to kick through the floor. Breathing here. And then from here, just step forward into forward fold. Right leg meets the left at the front of the mat. Folding over. Knees can bend generously here. You can grasp opposite elbows. Maybe you sway a little bit side to side. The hands can come to the floor. Just noticing, maybe you feel some traction in your back here, releasing tension. And on your next inhale, we'll halfway lift. The hands can come to the shins, the thighs. They can stay down on the floor, but you're looking for some extension in your spine. So kind of a flat back. Your gaze is down at the floor. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise up, arms overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Mountain pose. From here, inhale, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Then plant the hands back into a plank pose. High plank pose. Or if your wrists are bothering you, you can come down to a forearm plank. Holding here in the strong pose. And on your next inhale, slowly lower down to the belly. Let that go. Inhale, the head lifts a little bit. Shoulder blades squeeze together. Baby cobra. Tops of the feet are pushing down into the floor. Neck is neutral. Exhale, lower down, and then meet back in downward facing dog. On your next inhale, right foot goes up and back, straight leg. Exhale, pull through high lunge, so left knee is lifted. If you're not quite ready for a high lunge yet, you can keep that left knee down on the ground. Here in this crescent lunge, right knee is over the right ankle. The left leg is straight and strong on the ball of the foot. Hips are facing forward. Again, any arm variation here. Hands can stay at the waist. Up to a Y, goalpost or cactus arms. A couple rounds of breath here. And your next exhale, hands come down to frame the foot. You have an optional vinyasa here. Or we can meet back in downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, inhale, left leg reaches back. Exhale, pull through. Right leg is lifted. Crescent lunge on this side. Holding here, you have a strong back leg. The right glute is active, squeezing, stretching and extending your hip flexors, which is the front part of the thigh here. If you're feeling a little wobbly, focus on drawing the legs together in sort of a scissoring action. When they come towards the midline of the body, it can help stabilize the pose. On your next exhale, hands come down to frame the foot and step up to forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift.
Exhale, fold. Inhale, rise up, arms overhead. Hands to heart center on your exhale. On your next inhale, again, arms rise up. Exhale, sink down into chair pose. So the hips come down and back as if you're about to sit into a chair. The feet can be hips to hips with distance apart, or together, whatever feels right for your body, it's okay. But not allowing the knees to track past the toes. There's a lightness in the toes. So you're sinking down, shifting the weight down into the heels. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift. Exhale, plant the hands. Come into plank pose. You have an optional vinyasa here. You can meet us in downward facing dog or rest in child's pose until we're ready to move on from here. So if you're doing the vinyasa, you're in plank pose. Slowly lower the belly down. You can come into any variation here. Cobra, baby cobra. What we did in the beginning. I'll come into a locust pose. So the head and shoulders lift, palms lift, legs lift. Slightly bend the knees to engage the hamstrings, back of the thighs. And then exhale, push back into downward facing dog. Pause here and bring your awareness to your breath. Maybe your breathing has sped up. Maybe you can sense a little more energy flowing through your body now that you've been moving and breathing here. Resting here in downward facing dog or in child's pose. And then we'll all come back into downward facing dog. On your next inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, pull through, high lunge. Inhale and open up to warrior two. Left heel spins down. Shoulders are over the hips. Arms are extended out. Shoulders are rolled down and together on the back. Gaze is over the right middle finger. Breathing here, maybe you can go a little bit deeper in that forward leg. Maybe just for a breath. You come back out. On your next exhale, hands cartwheel down to the floor. Optional vinyasa or meet back in downward facing dog. And back to, we'll all meet in downward facing dog. And on your next inhale, the left leg lifts. Exhale, pull through, high lunge. Arms up with an inhale. Pausing here. And on your next exhale, open up into warrior two. Right heel spins down. Left knee is tracking over the left toes. Shoulders are down and together. On your next exhale, cartwheel the hands down, come into a plank pose. And from here, move into side plank. So right hand comes just a little forward of center. You spin onto the edge of the right foot. Now, options for modification here, you can lower the right knee, keep the right knee on the floor, and lift up into side plank. If you want a little bit more, you can keep the right knee off the mat, extending. Maybe the left leg lifts. Maybe, if you're feeling so inclined, you reach and grab your big toe with your two-piece fingers. Exhale, come back to center. Same thing on the left side. Again, any modification or variation that works for you. Breathing here, lifting the hips up towards the ceiling. And then back to center, and slowly lower down to the belly. And from here, come into a locust pose. So the head lifts. Notice that the neck is neutral and not cranking my neck back. My gaze is down a little bit in front of my mat. Arms can reach back, palms down. The feet lift, pushing down into the hips. You can bring the feet together for a little bit more, some engagement of the hip adductors, the inner thigh muscles. Maybe bend the knees for some engagement of the back of the thighs, the hamstrings. And then let that go. Resting here for a moment. Reconnecting with your breath. Noticing the energy that might be moving through your body now. And then come back to a comfortable seated position. Easy pose, Sukhasana. Again, finding some length in the spine. We'll just do some shoulder stretches here. We'll get some movement of the neck and shoulders. So we'll elevate the shoulders, raising them up to the ears, and then shrugging them down. Again, and down. And then you can make some shoulder circles here, moving in one direction, and then the other. Maybe you find a spot that feels good and you stay there for a moment. And come back to neutral, let that go. From here, we'll do some movements of the spine. So just a simple movement, moving the chin up towards the ceiling and down towards the chest. Just a extension and flexion. So extension, the chin goes up. Flexion, the chin comes towards the chest. And then back to center. And some rotation, so looking left and right. That's it, left and right. And back to center. From here, we'll do some flexion, some side flexion. So dropping the left ear towards the left shoulder, keeping the right shoulder relaxed and the left shoulder. Maybe you move your head around a little bit, getting into any tense areas. You can yawn here, moving the jaw, and then switch sides. And come back to the center and make circles with your nose. And then switch direction. Just let that go. Take any movement that feels good. Maybe you want a couple rounds of seated cat-cow, just kind of moving through the whole spine for a moment, letting go of any tension where you can. And then come to hands and knees. So from here, let's move into pigeon pose. A couple options for this. Your standard pigeon. We'll start with the right leg in front, so the right foot comes towards the left hand, right knee towards the right hand. Trying as best as we can to keep the shin parallel to the front of the mat, but maybe that's not where you're at today, and that's okay. We are maintaining some buoyancy in the hips. The left leg is stretched back behind. This is a good place for a prop if you're feeling some tightness and you're just not quite ready for this. You can stick a block, a blanket, a towel underneath this right hip. You can stay up here. You can come down to the forearms. You can rest your head on a block. We'll be here for a little while. So make yourself as comfortable as you can in this pose. Now, if this pose isn't working for you, some variations. You can come into like the 90 degree. So I'll spin around so you can see. The front leg is bent 90 degrees. The back leg, instead of extending behind you, is now out to the side. 90 degrees and 90 degrees in the knee. And then bringing the chest down to your own degree. You can also take this on your back. Right ankle crosses over the left thigh. You can stay here, apply some pressure on the right thigh, or you can bring the left foot off the ground and pull the left leg towards the chest. Do what feels right for you. Noticing the sensation in the outer right hip. This pose can get intense if it's held for a while. If you're starting to feel the urge to get out of it, see if you can stay and breathe so long as you're not feeling pain. See if you can stay, connect with your breath. If you set an intention, reconnect with that, or your mantra. And then you can gently come out of that and move into pigeon pose on the other side. If you are in the variation with the leg behind, if you have some sensitivity in the knee or the foot, it can be really nice and comfortable to put a blanket or a towel underneath the knee and the foot. Okay, so we'll come into pigeon here, whichever variation you're using. I definitely need a block on this side. It's different. Maybe you notice a difference between right and left in your body. See if you can notice without judging it, just with a witnessing awareness. Maybe you imagine that you can breathe in and send the breath directly to that left outer hip. What would it feel like if you could send your breath, your prana, your life force, right into the area of sensation in your body? Notice if any tension has crept into your neck and shoulders. See if you can let that go. And then slowly come out of that. Remove your props if you've been using them. Come back to, this time we'll come into a bound ankle pose. So the soles of the feet come together, the knees splay out. If this is too much for your knees or inner thighs, then feel free to add some support under your knees, under the thighs. You can also play around with the positioning of the feet. If you move the feet further away from the body, it can be less intense, more accessible. Bringing them closer is going to increase the sensation of the stretch here. And option 2, extend the spine here, sitting tall, feeling the flow of energy through your body. Maybe you massage the feet, the calves, shins. Or you can, from here, hinge at the hips, forward, folding over your feet. Maybe your forehead comes down to your feet. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you want a little extra support. You bring a block to meet your forehead.
slowing our practice down now. Turn your awareness inside, noticing the breath. And then come up out of that and move down to your back. From here, the feet are flat on the floor, knees are pointing up towards the ceiling. Feet are about hips width distance apart. We'll move into bridge pose here. So bringing the hands down to the floor. On your next inhale, push the hips up towards the ceiling, lifting one vertebra at a time, pushing down into the arms, down into the heels, engaging the hamstrings and the glutes, strong in the back of the legs here. Maybe you notice a sensation of stretch on the front of the thigh. On your next exhale, slowly lower down, one vertebra at a time. And maybe on the next round, you want to add a little more. You can place a block or a folded up blanket or towel between the thighs, squeezing the knees together, accessing the adductor muscles, which are the inner thigh muscles that bring the legs together. And from here, inhale, pushing down into the heels, lifting the hips. Maybe you walk your hands, your shoulders underneath you, interlace the hands and push down into the floor. If you're not using a block and you want a little bit more, you can lift the right leg up towards the ceiling. Right foot, like you're standing on the ceiling. And then switch sides if your foot's up. Maintain your breath here, breathing. And then exhale, slowly lower down. From here, you can draw the knees in towards the chest, rocking side to side, massaging the back on the floor. You can grab the outer edges of the feet, gently pulling the feet, the knees down towards the ground for happy baby pose. You can stay here in stillness, or maybe you rock side to side. It's kind of a playful pose. You can play with it and have fun. Maybe you straighten one leg and then the other. And then let that go. From here, if you have a block, you can place it under your sacrum. Down here, not in the lower back, but below that. And come into a waterfall pose, or you can do legs up the wall. Just an inversion. We're getting the head below the heart, reversing the flow of blood and lymph. Breathing here. Slowing down. If you set an intention, you can call it to mind. Repeat it to yourself here. Maybe you find a little extra movement in your ankles and feet, making circles with the ankles, pointing and flexing the feet. Another movement that you can do, inversion and eversion, which is kind of like the parade wave, where you move the foot kind of side to side. It's an unusual movement. Feels good to me. And then let that go. Feet come back to the mat. remove the block if you were using one. And from here, we'll just lift the hips up and to the right. The knees come down to the left. They can be stacked. Arms are out like a T or goalposts, and the gaze is over to the right. You're in this supine twist. Come back to center and move to the other side. So again, lifting the hips, scooching them to the left, knees falling to the right, gaze is to the left. Back to the center. And if you need to make any last movements before we come into Shavasana, do so now. Otherwise, you can come into corpse pose, Shavasana. If you need a little something, some support under the knees, can take some tension off of the lower back. So the legs are sprawled, feet kind of hang out to the side. If this is too much on the low back, you can bring your feet to the floor, kind of bring your knees together. You might find a little release in the lumbar spine and the lower back. Arms are out to the side, taking up space. Shoulder blades are slightly tucked under you, palms are up. Eyes can close. Releasing your tension into this pose, sinking down into the mat, feeling supported, and finding stillness and silence for a few minutes here. Shavasana. And if you'd like to stay in Shavasana, you are welcome and encouraged to do that. Otherwise, slowly make your way back to a comfortable
comfortable seated position, Sukhasana. Maybe pausing on your side on your way up. You can keep the eyes closed as you make this transition. Holding on to that feeling of being in Shavasana. Pausing here for a moment. Noticing the effects of your practice. Checking in with your breath, your mind state. Checking in with your body. See how it feels after moving and breathing. And bring the hands together at heart center. By the mind to the heart. Thank you for practicing today. It was an honor to lead you through this Hatha yoga class. Namaste.